Today around the cooler, we're talking about who drove a dagger into the heart of country music.
So if Petty is that into the spectrum, then I would say that Garth Brooks is probably the antithesis, the protagonist of the music industry for me. I cannot stand Garth Brooks. That guy's the hugest douche canoe ever to grace the planet, as far as musical talent goes. I can't stand him. I know that's probably offending a lot of people. I don't care.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that. I mean, country music, for what it is, I never felt he was country music. He wrote songs that tried to be country songs. He became iconic, but that's mostly because of dancehall and radio play. I mean, when you take a guy and you just jam him down somebody's throat.
He's the auto-tune. He's the auto-tune to country music that Madonna had back in her day. I mean,
absolutely. That's a great comparison because that's how I feel about Madge.
Exactly.
Not a fan of hers.
Yeah.
I know that when he first came out, a buddy of mine went to his concert, and it was before he was like really, really big. So Chris LeDoux,
love that guy.
Okay, so if most of the people in the rodeo world, when they're traveling around from arena to arena, Chris LeDoux is a cassette that most people have plugged in their cassette player.
Sure.
And you have to. I know I've heard lots of Chris LeDoux songs. For me, it's like reggae and Mexican music. Is after you've heard like a couple of Chris LeDoux songs,
they're all the same.
You've heard them all.
Yeah.
Everybody else has been like, oh no, how could you dare soil that man's name? And I'm like, after a while, you get tired of listening to songs about rogue horses and going to rodeos back and forth. After a while, it just gets old.
Right.
I'm not saying that the guy's not talented. I just don't want to hear the same music over and over again.
No, that's true. I mean, you could say that about most country songs. I mean, you really can. I mean, my favorite's George Strait. Okay, I've always been a George Strait fan.
Guy's talented. The guy's got a lot of talent.
Exactly. I'm not on the bandwagon with him, but I will say some of his songs tend to do what you just described.
Right.
One of the interesting things, because, we both spent time doing rodeo stuff or hanging around that crowd for quite a while. And it's funny how a song will just catch on. I remember when I was young, I'm going to go way back, the Oak Ridge Boys and Alabama. That's all you heard.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so when you look at music that gets that play, it's always to the younger crowd, and it's always something that's on the radio 24/7.
Just to wrap up why I brought up Chris LeDoux was when he was in Oklahoma trying to break out over there, that was the crowd that he was playing to. He was trying to get to get the Chris LeDoux followers to become Garth followers. That's why I was making that comparison.
Well, he wrote a song about him. I'm just too young to feel this damn old.
I'm too stupid to be this gay.
Exactly.
I'm not sure.
Something along those lines. And when he mentions Chris LeDoux, everybody cheers.
Oh,
for that.
yes.
Because Chris was a big cult hero in the rodeo.
Yes, he was.
Tragic death. It was all a lot like the whole Lane Frost thing, except he had cancer in the bile duct and he died like overnight quickly. And it was really sad. But LeDoux was actually known as a songwriter as well. He spent more time as a songwriter. And you see a lot of guys like that collaborate as a songwriter and then end up going on a solo career. Sometimes it doesn't work out for him. LeDoux definitely had his own crowd. He wasn't for the masses for sure.
Yes.
And Garth Brooks, like I said, he played off of that as much as he could. And then he went off and did that whole Courtney. What was that? Courtney.
Oh yeah.
Courtney Cox.
Courtney Gaines or whatever. Chris Gaines.
Yeah.
Horrible.
I was like
awful.
Oh.
I think that's what irritates me about the guy so much is that it's not really about something that's heartfelt. All he's about is making a brand. I have this goofy shirt that I'm wearing. I have this goofy hat. I'm making a brand. That's all that is.
Wrangler wear.
Exactly. All it is that he's trying to brand everything around him, and it seems disingenuous. I grew up on George Jones. I grew up on Merle Haggard. I grew up on guys like that. Real country dudes that were real country people.
So I got a great Merle Haggard story for you. Back in the years, I was working for a company that promoted country music tours, and they sponsored a big one. Then it was the Summit. It was artists like Ricky Skaggs, Hank Williams Jr., Merle Haggard, Hank Williams. Did I say Hank Williams Jr.?
Yeah.
Okay, he was there. So we were all in the ready room, and we're sitting in this ready room because we were doing hospitality for him. And somebody comes in from the garage and says, hey, there's a big Western Flyer bus that we need that thing to move over a little bit. And so this guy gets up, and it was Merle Haggard. He was in a brown tracksuit. So I got on the golf cart with him, and I drove him down to the garage. And he jumps off the golf cart. He gets in the bus, and he backs this big old 40-foot bus
Himself.
out. He drove it.
Right.
And there was, I don't know if you've ever seen the old parking lot in that Summit, but it was really tight.
Yeah.
Right.
He literally had maybe an eighth of an inch to spare.
Old boy threaded the needle.
Like it was nothing.
And find me an artist today that would go out there and move his own vehicle.
Absolutely. But that's because those guys had to work their way up.
Garth Brooks would have 3 assistants down from him that would go move that bus.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yep.
Well, I don't even think he would know how to drive the
I
bus.
venture to say, yeah, that's the case. He doesn't know how to put it in gear.
And that's kind of the big difference when you get to know some of the older guys, like you just mentioned, because you mentioned all of my favorites.
Right.
Those were the guys that really brought the music on. They came up the hard way. They were playing honky tonks, and they were just
Waylon Jennings, all those
yeah.
guys, man, and they lived a hard life. They lived what they sang about. You know
they
what I mean?
loaded up in a car,
Right.
and they drove a circuit through Texas and Oklahoma or wherever else they sent them.
Yes.
Nowadays these guys are in these huge luxury palaces. But going back to the whole Garth Brooks persona, that was probably the first completely managed personality you saw.
Well, it's
for
why
a
we
marketing
have
effect.
It's why we have what we have today, which is dirt, beers, trucks, tailgates. That all stems from Garth Brooks. Every bit of this manufactured BS country music that we hear now comes from him. That's why we have what we have, and no longer do we have Merle Haggard, George Jones, people like that. Not that they're dead; it's that nobody lived their life.
Well, unfortunately, they are dead. But
They are dead. But what I'm saying
Yeah.
though, it's not because that they've just all died off. It's
Right.
because we're listening to people that's never lived their lifestyle. That's my point.
It's true. When you see artists now, and this has been the biggest knock on Nashville for a long time, is they use a formulaic approach to the consumer of country music.
Mm-hmm.
They wrap it around a clothing line.
Put it in a
wrap-
can.
Yeah, they put it in a can. They wrap it around a beer brand or a truck or whatever it is they want to wrap it around. And so it becomes something that's predictable and manageable, and it's got revenue, steady income on it. Garth Brooks definitely led the way for that. And I'm with you. That was one of the worst concerts I've ever seen in my life. I actually went to one and was completely embarrassed to admit that I went to that thing because it was horrible.
Yeah.
With the Garth Brooks?
Yeah, the cannons going off and he was swinging.
I went to
on
the
a
one
rope
here
or something.
before-
Well, I hung him with that rope.
Right.
When my wife and I were dating at the time, we got tickets to go one of the shows in the Summit, and it was, for her, it was awesome.
Yeah, of course.
But
Can you let me ask you something? Can you see Johnny Cash walking out on the stage and some cannons going off behind him, spitting flames out? Dude would turn around and jump up and go, "What the actual hook was that?"
yes, yeah,
You'd scare the shit out of him.
I actually would like to see that.
Yeah. Yeah, you might get shot.
Yeah.
Whoever's standing behind it's probably a bad idea. You never know with those guys.
I mean, you talk about. I would say that I don't know if I would say that Johnny Cash and Tom Petty are the same when you identify them to a music genre,
Sure.
but they're pretty damn close in a way because I think that Cash,
In their respective fields, they're kind of the same.
They are.
They
Yeah.
are. Yeah, very much the same, and that's kind of a good comparison, I
well,
think.
and so when you look at it, both artists, and those are really good choices, is they were very adventurous in their musical journey.
Right.
Because look at where Johnny started.
Right.
And then towards the end, he's singing songs from the song "Hurt" from Nine Inch Nails.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
And he did that really well.
He did that song a lot of justice.
Yeah.
And with Tom Petty coming from like "Damn the Torpedoes" to some of the other music that he put out before he passed, they're like night and day. Back then it was like big stadium, 70s rock, big sound.
Right.
Collaborating with other artists that were, kind of in that same genre, i.e. him and Stevie Nicks and Fleetwood Mac was huge during that time period. So it was not unheard of, as bands are crisscrossing the United States, that they run into each other and kind of collaborate.
Sure.
I mean, it was a big old hippie fest.
So that brings me to a question. You just mentioned the big super arenas and the super concert venues. And one thing I've always enjoyed was the more intimate setting with these type of artists, where they actually play smaller venues. And for me, you get a better experience, you get better music, and it's more of an intimate setting. And you don't get all that marketing thrown at you when you're at this thing. You generally get the artist playing what the artist likes to play,
which he generally does well.
Yeah,
so
yes.
if they're playing what they want to play, they generally do it really well.
Absolutely. And to me, that's a more memorable experience. And the reason why I bring that up is I tie it to the whole Garth Brooks experience. There are certain bands that can pull off big arenas.
Right.
You bring the Beatles in, okay?
Yeah.
But that was a different time. That was a different mindset of the people. When I go to a concert, I want to hear the concert and I want to enjoy the concert. I don't want to hear 50,000 people screaming all around me, carrying on conversations. I want to hear the music.
Well,
I want to see the artist.
So, like nowadays, with the advent of wanting to build these huge arenas like Staples Center and the big concert arenas, people who own those things, they want to fill those. They want to put.
They got to fill seats.
They want to put butts
seats
in those seats
right.
for when there's not some sporting event going on. Music festivals bring a lot of people to your location. Ask an artist, where do you prefer to perform? I guarantee you a majority of them would say in a small venue somewhere, like a little local club somewhere. But
it makes a better experience for them.
But the draw of the money of these big arenas, that money goes to pay for. This gets to the business side of recording, but they get fronted a lot of money for their music. So the money that they make at these big, huge arenas balances out the cost of what it costs them to make whatever record that they're
putting out. So I got
a
question then. So was Garth Brooks actually a good musician and an entertainer? Or was he a vehicle for a marketing group that was able to drive revenue through concerts?
He's a product of his own
I
environment.
would say he was more of a personality than a musician.
Absolutely. So his impact on music was really
detrimental.
Come and gone.
He's
come and gone.
It's come and gone, but the effects of what he did still exist. I have to, every time, if I want to listen to country music and I turn it on, it takes all of about 5 minutes to realize his influence is still going on in this music. I can't stand this, and I turn it off.
Well, he's getting airplay.
Yeah.
And that's probably contractual.
Probably, but not even his music. I'm saying listening to artists now, listening to their music, I feel his influence in it with this, like I said, beers, trucks, tailgates, dirt roads.
Fucking Brad Paisley. Fuck that dude.
That's just Garth Brooks 2.0,
yes,
dude.
These guitar groups talk about this goddamn telly that Fender's putting out. All I want to do is take it and break it over my knee. Because everybody thinks Brad Paisley is this freaking awesome country guitar singer, whatever. You're exactly right. He is Garth Brooks 2.0.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting question. And so we know Petty was a rock guitar god.
Shit, yeah.
Who's the country music guitar god?
Ooh, that's a good question. I'd have to think about it.
Maybe a guy like Steve Wariner?
Well, that's what I was going to... Steve, because...
He studied with Chet Atkins?
Really the good country... Okay, Steve Wariner, great guitar player, great songwriter. Mm-hmm. Leroy Parnell.
Absolutely.
Undervalued guy can play wicked slide.
Right.
Most of the names escape me because they're guys that they've fallen out of the limelight.
You don't hear about
They're
them.
not lead singers either, are they?
No, if nobody has figured out a way to take their product and bleed money out of the public, they're just a useless tool sitting in the corner.
Sure. No doubt. You look at the effect of the music that you're listening to in the country genre now, and you got Kid Rock playing with country bands. You got
but I'd rather hear Kid Rock.
Yes. Oh, me too. No, I'm saying.
At least I get a genuine feel out of Kid Rock. You know what I mean?
And Kid Rock has he's kind of traveled a tough road from being labeled, a filthy mouthed rapper who shouldn't be in front of a mic to now, he's kind of come full circle.
They cultivated his
Oh
talent.
yeah, he has become way more accepted than he ever could have.
And one of my
imagined.
favorite country music singers has done that. Hank Williams Jr.
Oh yeah,
helped cultivate that guy.
Oh, yeah,
into this.
yeah.
And I like Hank Williams, dude. That you talk about a guy with some good music.
Mm-hmm.
That guy's got some good music. I enjoy Hank Williams.
I'm going to go back to that story I told you at the summit because Hank Williams was there. And when all the musicians played, Hank was the closer. And what I thought was really cool about this show was he's up there with his band, playing with his band.
What year was that?
This has got to be
Late
80s. 89.
I was going to say, so
88, 89.
Hank has got quite the following then.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. So he's on the stage and he's playing all his popular songs with the band. And then he plays one song, him and the Fiddle Drinker down a fifth of Jack, which is probably iced tea, but they down this fifth, and they all leave the stage, except for Hank. And he sits down with the guitar, and he starts talking about his influence with Leonard Skinner.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And he starts singing some of the songs that they did together. And it was really amazing because he brought the crowd all the way to a peak and then brought everybody back down. As big as that summit was, you didn't hear a sound other than Hank talking. And then when he was done, all the band comes out and he starts playing All My Rowdy Friends Are Coming Over Tonight.
Oh, yeah.
And he comes out, he rips off his shirt, and he puts on a boxing robe like Rocky Balboa. He climbs on top of this piano and pulls out a lever-action Winchester and starts firing blanks off into the crowd. It was so loud. Have you ever had your ears shut off?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was so loud, and it literally, that place was vibrating. It was so loud. You had gun smoke, you had fire. He shot off 4 or 5 blanks in the room, and it was like the most coolest thing I've ever seen at a concert. And I've been to some good concerts.
At no point did you ever look at that guy and go, I feel like I'm looking at a weepy vagina.
Right.
Exactly.
You just look at this guy and go, that's a freaking man right there.
Absolutely. Well, he sings about stuff. I mean, you were talking about content in some of the songs. Hank has a tendency to kind of be along that same vein as Charlie Daniels. They have
Yes.
a lot of the same. They sing about patriotic things. They think about, or they sing about hunting. They sing about patriotism. You know, they really hit. They know what chord they're hitting, and they do a really good job with the market when they bring that out. Hank is always going to be relevant. A lot of stars would say, "Oh, it's because of his dad." No way. Hank is his own
He
guy.
was totally different than his dad.
He was his own guy.
I really believe that.
Yeah.
And so when we circle back to Garth Brooks.
Yeah, because we don't want to let him out of the barrel.
Well, but
gonna die.
with today's artists, like when country people started pushing back on what was being pushed as country music now. So when, like Luke Bryan, another guy I like to fucking punch, is when people were saying that Luke Bryan, what he sings about was not country. His response was, not all artists had to be drunks and drug dealers and so on. So
Yeah, they did.
That's
what made them. I'm sorry to say it, but that's what made them entertaining.
So the sound bite that he thought that he was going to be able to push back against his detractors one actually came back to like punch him right in the face.
Right.
Is the fact that he was almost slapping the people that paved the way for him to kind of sort of walk the path that they created. As far as I'm concerned,
It's a popular theme today to do that.
he planted flowers along the fucking way. He didn't just he didn't walk with a whiskey bottle. He was walking around with a goddamn apron, putting pretty colored flowers along the path. No,
Weepy vagina.
Yeah.
Weepy vagina.
yeah, so fuck that dude.
It's
Yeah.
funny because these producers try to pull audiences across lines. They really do. They try to pull you from top 40 into country. Mm-hmm. And George Strait and Alan Jackson did this great song on stage during the Country Music Awards years ago, Murder on Music Row.
Oh yeah. Did not go over well.
It was awesome. It was a defining moment in
Yeah.
music, in my opinion. And it basically called out all this shit that's going on radio right now. Because literally, take a guy like Keith Urban. I think Keith Urban is an excellent songwriter. He's a pretty good guitar player.
Right.
But is he really a country music musician? Is he a country star? To me, he's a top 40 artist that happens to sing in the key of country.
Right.
You know,
He follows that. He kind of follows that template.
Some producer somewhere took the guy and molded him into what they wanted him to be, which is the product that we have now.
Right.
Absolutely.
And it's just a train wreck.
Because back then, when everybody was rogues and they basically earned it on the road and they played the honky tonks, it reminds me of that scene in what is that? The Blues Brothers, where they're playing behind the barbed wire cage.
Yeah.
And bottles are
Bottles
busting
are
all
flying.
around them and stuff like that.
That's why they do rawhide.
Country music. That was country music for a long time because people went to a honky tonk to just let it all out.
Drink and see blood on the floor. That's what you were there for.
Unless you live the life of Jeff Healey, shut the fuck up.
Absolutely, no doubt. You talk about a loss.
Another dead artist that's gone. That was.
You talk about a loss. That was a big
That
loss.
was a
that guy was
huge loss.
fantastic.
Yeah.
But it's funny because, Texas having the reputation for the dance hall musician, you had swing, you had Texas swing. I mean, today is one of my favorite, that's my favorite style of country music.
Yeah.
I mean, I go back to Don Walzer and Ernest Tubb. And when we used to go to dance halls, that was a big thing. And that's what you heard when you got to see guys like that play live. That was the experience that I was looking for. The sights, the sounds, the smells, everything that was involved with the music in those old honky tonks and bars and dance halls.
When I was
fantastic.
When I was, I'd already graduated high school, and I was dating some girl out of Alvin. And there was a couple of places I remember that I went to when I was dating and then when I got married. And they were all down south. So one was the Crystal Cowboy, which was, at the time, for that time period, it had a mix of like swing music and stuff. Mm-hmm. But the swing place that I think that most emulates that swing world and bringing a community together was Eddie's Ballroom.
Oh,
Eddie's
my gosh,
Ballroom
yeah.
in Manville. Oh,
wow.
my God.
Yeah.
Probably one of the last places I ever danced with my ex-wife. But when you walked in there, it was a swing band.
Yeah.
People out of Manville and Santa Fe and Pearland, and people would drive, from all parts of Houston just to get to this place. And that muddy ass parking lot was filled with vehicles from all walks of life. It was crazy. It was crazy packed.
So I'm going to go completely to the other side of that. Mickey Gillies in Pasadena, Texas.
There you go.
An urban fucking cowboy.
I almost went to
There's
jail
your template.
because of Gillies.
Yeah.
Well, there's your template for Garth Brooks, that
Yeah.
movie. Somebody watched that movie, looked at Garth Brooks and said, "We are going to make you this."
Oh, hated that movie. Hated that movie.
Every chick under the age of 21 loved it, though.
So you guys, you've known me for like the last 6 or 7 years, but prior to that, I wore a cowboy hat all the time. When I was in school, they took my hat away from me. Every day I'd come to school because I would wear my hat to school.
Right.
And when that movie came out, I hung the hat up.
You have to.
There was no way I was going to walk out in public after that movie wearing a hat.
No.
That
What
was
an
just,
embarrassment.
Yeah.
I mean, really.
It was. I mean, John Travolta, I'm sorry. That guy killed that. He killed country for me for a long time. And then Johnny Lee didn't help.
Well,
Johnny Lee didn't help me one bit.
That and those stupid
Feathers?
feathered hat
Yeah.
bands. Oh my God.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no doubt.
that was pretty bad.
Well, there you go. We've managed to go from one of the greatest artists of all times to jumping the shark with country music.
That's all for today's podcast. Thanks for listening to The Cooler.